All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as Matt Barrows sat down in the Athletic with Tariq Ahmad, 49er scouting director, and they went through the draft class, and there's a lot of good information in there. We'll discuss it all next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. We're also sponsored by Mancini's. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Mancini's Sleep World. Their huge Memorial Day sale is live now through June the 9th. You can save up to $1,200 on select adjustable mattress sets. Plus, they're throwing in an extra 10% off if you're a fan of the Krug Show. That's right. It's all backed by their Rest Easy promise. Best price guarantee. They'll match the lowest prices you can find. 365-night comfort guarantee. You get a full year to try it out, and free next day delivery. So if you've been busy, if you've been thinking about upgrading your bed, but you haven't gotten to it, now is the time. Just make sure you jump on it before June the 9th. Make sure you use our code KRUG10 at checkout, KRUEG 10 at checkout, and you'll save an additional 10% on your mattress purchase. Once again, KRUG10 at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. And thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. I've said it many times. I don't want to bore you guys with it, but Matt Barrows is the best. He covers the Niners. I think he's the best at doing it, and he had a great sit-down this week in The Athletic, and I would encourage all of you guys to order The Athletic. I would order it just for Matt Barrows. I mean, seriously. They also have Dane Brugler and many, many others, but Barrows covers the Niners on a level that you won't want to miss his coverage. And he did a great sit-down for The Athletic, and it's out on the Athletic site right now. How do the 49ers 11 draft picks fit into their roster? And what are some of their thoughts? We know they drafted these players, and by definition, we know they like them. But we didn't know exactly what they like about them and how they arrived at drafting them. So Matt sat down with Tariq Ahmad, the 49ers director of player personnel and college scouting, to discuss the draft class, and there was a lot of great stuff. So let's just get right into it. One of the things that Ahmad said early on, he says, man, we definitely got bigger and stronger on the defensive line. There's no question about that. Heading into the draft, Tariq Ahmad told Barrows that the Niners knew that they would stock up on defensive linemen and that they were likely to come away with at least one good running back because it was a great running back draft. And Tariq Ahmad said they wanted even more picks. He said, we were really excited to have those 3 picks in the 7th round. We wish we had a few more. There were some other guys that we liked that were there. So let's go into what the Niners did and what Tariq Ahmad shared with us about what the Niners did. Now, obviously, they drafted Mykel Williams, the defensive end from Georgia, in the 1st round. And it's interesting, there's always some tilting point of what makes a team like a certain player. And it sounds like the 49ers really were impressed with the interview that they had with Mykel Williams at the Combine. And according to Tariq Ahmad, he said, it just matched up with everything that the Georgia people told us, that this kid has the intensity, that he has the passion. And he said Mykel Williams made a great initial impression on the 49ers at the Combine. He also revealed that the Niners national scout Steve Rubio went to Georgia for a practice earlier in the year and noted that Williams, who had been nursing an ankle injury much of the year, took every practice rep, even on the bad ankle, and then practiced for another 20 minutes after practice. And after the formal practice ended, he was out there working for another 20 minutes. And Ahmad said that was a story that really stood out to us. The 49ers were sold on Mykel Williams early on, and they tried to hide it, because they didn't want people to know their intentions. In fact, because of the ankle injury, there was that late workout right before the draft between Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams. And it's funny because Tariq Ahmad told Matt Barrows, he says, I really wanted to go back there for Mykel's workout. I was itching to go back, but John Lynch thought it was a better idea to just watch the tape. And obviously they got their guy, so John ultimately was right. The Niners were trying to trade up in the first round for Mykel Williams and ultimately were not forced to because the Saints went in a different direction. But the Niners, there was a little gamesmanship there. The Niners did not want to give away that they had a lot of interest in Mykel Williams. And so Lynch said, let's not go back to that workout. Let's just watch it. Let's just watch it from afar and not let people know that we're this much in on this player. And it was probably a smart move. Who knows? It may have landed them the player. Then they talked about Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas. And it's interesting. It says, the Niners, according to Ahmad, he told Matt Barrows that the Niners had 19 different scouting reports on Alfred Collins because they had watched Texas so much because of all the different players Texas has had in the draft over the last couple of years. So they had a really advanced, long look at Alfred Collins. And one of the things that they really liked about Alfred Collins was how fast he was at 6'6" and 332 pounds. And he said Alfred can get off blocks and cover a short area very, very quickly. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, they love his movement ability, and they think he's got real high-level movement ability. Now, the sack production wasn't there, but Tariq Ahmad had an inside connection because he spent 7 seasons at Rutgers University with their assistant coach, Kyle Flood, who's now the Texas Longhorns offensive line coach. So he had that guy that he knew and trusted internally. And one of the things that Kyle Flood kept telling Tariq Ahmad was that Alfred Collins absolutely destroys practice. He said he's the hardest guy that they had to block on the interior of the defensive line. He's great at getting off of blocks and creating knockbacks. And just from having that inside information on Collins, they felt like they had more information. He says Texas often asked Collins to be more of a two-gapper. The Niners don't go two gaps. The Niners are a one-gap penetrating, get-up-the-field scheme. The Niners want their linemen to attack and aggressively shoot gaps. And, Tariq Ahmad said to Barrows, hey, look, when Alfred Collins picks up our style of play, we think his sack production's going way up. The guy only had 1 sack in all of his college career at Texas. But the Niners believe when he picks up their style that those numbers, his pass rush numbers are going to increase. And Ahmad was quoted as saying in the article, he says, he doesn't attack like we attack, but because of his length and his power, we feel we can get that out of him. So that's interesting. So they feel like they have much more of a pass rusher in Alfred Collins than maybe most people think. I mean, I think the talk was that, this guy's a run defender solely. But was he a run defender solely, or was he playing in kind of a read and react, stay home kind of a defense, and he's the big man in the middle playing the run? And in the Niners scheme, they're going to ask him to shoot gaps and get up the field and rush the passer. And they feel like they can get more pass rush out of him. That's exciting. That is really exciting. I think that's an exciting little wrinkle to this thing. Let's move on to Nick Martin. Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oak State. And this was, the Niners said they had 2 interviews that were really dazzling them at the combine. Well, one was Mykel Williams. The other was this guy, Nick Martin. He supposedly, according to Barrows, really dazzled the Niners at the combine. Said Johnny Holland, the Niners linebacker coach, and Robert Saleh, obviously the defensive coordinator, fell in love with Nick Martin during the draft process. Tariq Ahmad said he was definitely one of our consensus guys. We had him at the combine interview, and everyone was extremely excited about him. He was a guy we were targeting. So it's interesting. It's like, I think a lot of people feel like this guy was drafted to be, to play alongside Fred Warner, and obviously that is the plan. But I think the Niners also have an idea that this guy maybe someday could take over for Fred. Tariq Ahmad said the Niners wanted someone with communication skills, someone who could call the defensive huddle, somebody who could run the defensive huddle and call the defensive plays. And Martin did that at Oak State. When they were putting together their draft class this year, they knew, hey, you know what? The Niners knew, hey, we're going to have a lot of young guys on our defensive front 7. We need somebody who can lead them. And they look at Nick Martin as the guy who can be that leader. He was a 2-time team captain at Oak State. And obviously, Tariq Ahmad felt like that was important. He says it's important when we're considering how the rookies are going to mesh together. Who's going to be the leader of that group? Who's going to push guys to watch the extra tape, to be on the field extra? And they feel like Nick Martin is that leader. They're also hoping that he's going to be able to step in at weak side linebacker for Dre Greenlaw. And Ahmad said, hey, look, body structure-wise, they're a little different. But the aggressiveness, the physicality, the play speed, the passion, there's a lot of ways to compare those two guys. Everyone's different, but we're hoping. So the Niners are hoping they've got, somebody who's like physically and emotionally all in and is going to be one of the leaders of their defense. And a guy who can step in for Dre Greenlaw right away. And they're hoping that Nick Martin is that guy. Then they took Upton Stout, the cornerback, in the 3rd round. The Niners hosted him on an official visit, and they love his personality. And they've loved the fact that his personality is consistent with his tape. According to Ahmad, his personality mirrors the way he plays. He said the thing that stands out most when you watch Upton Stout's tape is his demeanor and his aggressiveness. He plays like he loves football. He plays in run support like he loves getting to the ball. It's exactly the passion, the mentality that we're looking for. So this was kind of some of the traits that they liked. I guess Ahmad liked last year from Renardo Green. And when he sat down with Barrows on Wednesday, he kind of expanded on that. He said, that's who we want to be on defense. We want guys who play fast and process quickly and then have the mentality of being aggressive. We want people who strain to get to the football, similar to Malik Mustafa, who constantly is straining to get to the ball. So, Stout's small. He's 5'8.5". He's one of the shortest defenders in the draft. But Tariq Ahmad says he doesn't think of him as small. He noted that Stout's got 74.5-inch wingspan, that's pretty much average for nickel corners, that he's thickly built. He's stronger than a guy who a lot of people compared to him in K'Wan Williams. But they loved his personality. He says, we absolutely loved his passion, Ahmad said. Every time he walked into the room, he lit the room up. It's similar to the way he plays. So they really love the passion of Upton Stout, and Tariq Ahmad shared that with Matt Barrows. Then let's move on to day 3. C.J. West, who was my personal favorite draft choice from the Niners, the rookie defensive tackle, 4th-round pick out of Indiana. And I guess, it's interesting. I didn't realize this, but Chris Kasarik, when the Niners hired Chris Kasarik in 2019, Tariq Ahmad was the scout who cross-checked the draft's defensive linemen. So he worked, very closely with Kasarik, and he's got a good feel for what Kasarik wants in a defensive lineman. And that led the Niners to drafting C.J. West. Tariq Ahmad knows that Kasarik loves quick, powerful defensive linemen, and that's C.J. West. He's 6'1" and change, 317 pounds, but he had a 1.73 10-yard split at the combine. That was one of the fastest of any of the defensive tackles in this draft. And the Niners think that C.J. West doesn't particularly get off the ball well. You're working on your get off is a major part about playing defensive line in the NFL. And the Niners love the raw ability of C.J. West, but they think there's more there. Tariq Ahmad said he's someone we think still has a lot of untapped upside. He's someone we're going to have to teach how to get off the football the way we get off the football. He's a powerful, heavy guy. He's got twitch. He's got short area movement. He's got instincts. So I'll say this. To me, one of the most dominating films that I saw was the one-on-ones in the week leading up to the East-West Shrine Bowl All-Star game in Frisco, Texas. And you could see C.J. West and the ridiculous hand strength that he had, just ragdolling guys. It was very impressive. And he clearly was one of the best defensive players at that East-West Shrine Bowl, and the Niners took notice. Ahmad told Barrows, he said, we really felt his size and his quickness while he was there, and he was a great interview. So they loved him. They loved him, and they think that they think there's more. Isn't it interesting that they drafted two guys in West and Collins, and a lot of people are like, yeah, they want run defenders, but they really think there's upside in Collins and West as interior pass rushers, which would make them, incredibly valuable. All right, let's move on to Jordan Watkins, the receiver the Niners took in the 4th round. This was another guy that I really loved at Ole Miss. And Tariq Ahmad told Barrows that he thought Watkins looked as good as any receiver at the combine. The Niners really value the gauntlet drill, where the receiver runs in a straight line and has to catch passes, fired directly at him on the run. And the Niners are looking for receivers who can get through that gauntlet smoothly, who run a straight line and run fast. You can kind of cheat that drill if you 3/4 step it. If you're kind of, it's a harder drill to catch the ball if you're really running as fast as you can. But the Niners love this drill. And the Niners look for receivers who run that gauntlet drill with, smoothly. And they loved what they saw in Jordan Watkins. Ahmad told Barrows, we think it's one of the best measures of natural hands. Can they stay in a straight line and naturally pluck the football and then react and do it again and again? And Watkins reached 19.78 miles per hour during the gauntlet drill. It was the second fastest speed among all the receivers in Indy. And the Niners really liked that. They really liked the fact that he ran that drill so effectively. And it was backed up by his if you looked at his season. Pro Football Focus had the numbers that show that this guy's got great hands. He only had 6 drops over his entire college career. I mean, that is a low number of drops. For comparison, Barrows throws it in here. Teteroa McMillan, the Arizona receiver who went in the 1st round, had 7 drops just last season alone. And Watkins had 6 drops his entire time in college. So I love Jordan Watkins. Why? Because he's productive and he's fast. When you're productive and you're fast and you played in the SEC, you're good. That's it. And this guy was productive and fast in the SEC and had that production. And Ahmad said the scouting staff left the combine impressed with Watkins. And then the coaching staff started to fall in love with him as well, including Kyle Shanahan. Watkins has a lot of the traits that Shanahan loves. Shanahan covets wide receivers who are loose in the lower body, have strong change of direction skills, and are fluid. And Watkins is all those things. And Ahmad told Barrows Kyle was a big fan. He was a very big fan of his. So then they discussed Jordan James, the running back, the 5th-round pick from Oregon. The Niners, of course, you remember, sent a huge contingent up to Eugene for Oregon's Pro Day. And there was Tariq Ahmad and, John Lynch flanking Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker. And everybody was like, oh, the Niners want Jeffrey Bassa. Who they really wanted was Jordan James. And Jordan James stood out at that Pro Day to Tariq Ahmad. He told Barrows, we were standing right behind him, and we thought he had an excellent workout. They loved his strength, and they loved his acceleration. More than half of his 2,215 rushing yards in college came after contact. So the Niners drafted Jordan James thinking that he would be a nice complement to Guerendo. Tariq Ahmad said, we spent a lot of time on running backs this year. It was a very deep group, and there was definitely an opportunity for us to get someone anywhere from the 1st round through the 7th round. And I think we walked away with 2, including Corey Kiner, that can help us. I really was impressed with Corey Kiner, who was a really star-studded high school recruit who went to LSU and then transferred to play closer to home at Cincinnati. He was good at LSU. The guy's never missed a game. He was good at Cincinnati. And Ahmad said the Niners had a draftable grade on Kiner, who went undrafted, and the Niners signed him as an undrafted free agent. So look for Jordan James and Corey Kiner to make a name for themselves this summer. Then Ahmad talked about Marquise Siegel, the safety, the 5th-round pick out of K-State. He ran his 40 in 4.37 seconds. It was the fastest safety the Niners have drafted since they took Tarvarius Moore out of Southern Miss in the 3rd round back in 2018. Moore that year ran 4.32. The thing about it, though, Moore was big, strong, fast, but he didn't know how to play safety. He took poor angles, and that was a major problem, and it derailed his career. The one thing Tariq Ahmad told Barrows about Siegel is he loves the way he closes. He says, I love the way he closes and is able to erase mistakes because of that speed. That 4.37 speed kind of shows up. He says, I love the physicality with which he played. He got to the ball consistently at a very high rate. Siegel, of course, started as a corner at North Dakota State and then played a lot of slot after transferring to K-State. And Ahmad noted that some of Siegel's deep safety skills might have to be developed by the Niners, but that he's raw and that he's got ability. And Tarvarius Moore was a dime defender, and they feel like Siegel can play the nickel and the dime and be a threat in their sub packages. So that's interesting. I will say this. I saw that East-West Shrine game, and Siegel had a big physical hit where he came up in the run game and run support and starched somebody. And he runs 4.37. So, I mean, that right there. Anybody who can run 4.37 is probably worth having. Then they discussed Curtis Rourke, the 7th-round pick out of Indiana. And it's funny. The Niners made a mistake with Trey Lance. They drafted Trey Lance, and really it was all based on not much because Trey Lance only threw 318 passes in his college career. So with Brock Purdy, they, were looking for somebody more experienced. And Brock Purdy had 1,467 pass attempts in college. And the Niners feel that Curtis Rourke is more like Purdy. Rourke attempted 1,283 passes while at Miami of Ohio, or I should say Ohio and Indiana. So, and Ahmad said, hey, man, it's something we value. We value meaningful reps, game reps at all positions, and especially at that position. And Rourke not only had the reps, he played the position at a very high level. So Ahmad said that Rourke stood out in his processing speed. They thought he processed fast, processed what he saw quickly. They liked him as a decision maker. He had 29 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions last year at Indiana. They loved his accuracy. And he was also a favorite of their new quarterback coach, Mick Lombardi. And Ahmad was talking about Lombardi with Barrows and said he just attacks the tape. He had his list done a month before we were going to review quarterbacks. So we were talking about all these guys for a month, and Curtis was someone that he really, really liked toward the top of his stack. So it sounds like Curtis Rourke is a favorite of Mick Lombardi, and that's probably why that pick was made. And then the conversation moved over to Connor Colby, the 7th-round guard that the Niners took out of Iowa. And Chris Forster, according to Barrows, might be harder to please when it comes to his position than Shanahan even is with wide receivers. Tariq Ahmad told Barrows, he said, Chris is an extremely realistic grader. He's excellent at the evaluation of not only the talent and the product they put on the film, but also the mentality. And Colby was one of the guys he believes in. So, Colby played right guard at Iowa, and the Iowa outside zone system and the Niners outside zone system are very, very similar. And the Niners think Colby's a really good fit. Ahmad said, I thought he was really strong in the run game. I really like his lower body, his bend, his lower body power. So they like him as a run defender, and he played a ton, 50 career starts at Iowa. Definitely a guy to watch. And the last guy that Tariq discussed with Matt Barrows was Junior Bergen, their 7th-round pick, the returner from Montana. Niners, had a room full of special teams people saying, pounding the table, yelling and screaming for this guy in the 7th round. And they just couldn't say no to their special teams coach. So Brant Boyer is the Niners' new special teams coach. His son is the place kicker at Montana. Boyer's top assistant, Colt Anderson, played safety for Montana 2004 through 2008. So they felt like they had the inside skinny on Bergen. And they, their inside connections, they did a lot of research on Bergen. Bergen scored 8 punt return touchdowns in college. He averaged nearly 17 yards per return. Ahmad told Barrows when he was there with our last pick and the special teams coaches are standing on the table emphatically for him, it makes it easier to draft him. So supposedly this guy is much more developed as a return man than as a receiver. He was their primary punt returner, and he'll probably, if he makes the team, be the Niners' primary punt returner. Ahmad's quote to Barrows, "It's a combination of instincts and fearlessness. I think these great punt returners can see it and react to it and run through it at full speed, all at full speed. They have the vision to set things up, and then they can get downhill." So the Niners really love Bergen, and they feel like Junior Bergen is going to be the answer to their return issues. And Brant Boyers, said, "Hey, look, it may work out, it may not work out, but I really love this kid." So there you have it. Fantastic article by Matt Barrows. It's in The Athletic. He sits down with Tariq Ahmad, the team's director of player personnel and college scouting, and they went through the Niners' 11 draft picks, and we just threw out a bunch of the great stuff in there. But I would encourage all you guys, order The Athletic and read this article. One of the best you're going to read all year. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks for them being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Mancini Sleep World for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys. Hit like and subscribe on your way out the door. And thanks to you all for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.